Hey everyone, welcome to the product overview of the 510 front crossmember. We're going to be going over what's included, the construction of the crossmember, our QC process, the base settings that we usually recommend, and some color options. So first thing that you're going to have included is going to be the crossmember itself. You're going to have a pair of the motor mounts. These are our L series motor mounts. We are exploring different motor options, but right now we only have the factory L series options. A pair of these control arm spacers, a hardware pack for the crossmember, and a hardware pack for the motor mounts. Next, we're going to be going over the construction process. The crossmember is completely tubular. It comes with a optional jack. It comes with a jack pad on the bottom to make for easily lifting, and it comes with a adjustable roll center adjustment. Being tubular, it is incredibly light. The one thing you'll also notice is that this is completely reversible as well. If you guys are running SR20, KA swaps, all the other swaps that are very popular for the 510, these make an excellent choice because you are able to gain a ton of oil pan clearance just by swapping out the crossmember. Now, the other thing to also note is that these motor mounts are removable. So you can bolt them up if you're running the L series, or you can remove them, make your own motor mounts, or modify anything you have to very easily because the motor mounts are removable and they allow more clearance for motors. We really revamped our QC process in early 2024 because we have heard some customers have some issues with the QC settings that we've had. And so we did kind of revamp them, go through with a binder instructional sheet for the person that's going to be QCing the process and a dedicated person through our staff to QC each and every order before it leaves the door. So the first part of our QC process is going to be our packing list accuracy. We want to make sure all the products are there before we ship them out to the customer. For this order, we know we have to make sure that the crossmember is there, the motor mounts are there, the control arm spacers are there, and the hardware packs are there. Once everything is there for the order, and then it passes to the next step. The next step here is going to be the hardware sheet. We want to make sure that everything is accurate and the parts that are in the hardware sheet. We want to make sure that the hardware sheets are correct and the parts that are in the hardware sheet are accurate as well. Once the hardware sheet QC process is done, then we go ahead and do the cosmetic threshold. The cosmetic threshold is just to make sure there's no chips or scratches and dents on any of the parts that are machined or powder coated. Something to always note is that we do have to hook each and every item that gets powder coated. Now, if the item is very light, such as these motor mounts, the hook that we can use is very small. You can barely notice where we even hooked them. Now, for parts are a little bit heavier, such as a crossmember or a subframe, we do have to use a slightly larger hook. We do our best to touch them up so then they are still sealed from the elements, but just note you might have a little area where there's a hook mark. We try to reduce that as much as we can, but something that you should be aware of. We want to make sure that all the holes allow for the bolts to easily go through them. So we have a keyring for all the bolts that we have here, and we use them to go ahead and make sure that all the process is accurate. We want to make sure that all the holes have ample room. We don't want them to be too loose, but we do want them to go in with a little bit of effort. On the front crossmember, there really isn't any machine surfaces, so we go ahead to the next step. Next step is going to be threads. Also on the front crossmember, there is no threads, so we go ahead and go to the next step. Next up is the bearing seats. There's also no bearing seats on the front crossmember, so we go finally to the next step, which is to make sure that everything is properly deburred and there's no BBs where there has to be. Part of the QC process is to make sure that the roll center adjustment settings is completely clean. We do have these spacers that go into the roll center, and we do thoroughly check each one. Some of them will be a little bit tight with the powder coat, but we do want to make sure that they do fit. And finally, for the front crossmember, we do a QC process before it gets powder coated as part of the manufacturing process because we do weld these in a fixture. However, we do want to account for any weld deviations and heat distortion that might have. We have a aluminum fixture made, and this is mimicking on the factory car, and we want to make sure that it sits like so. You can see that the bolt holes go and the holes are slotted, so there is some wiggle room left to right. This ensures that the crossmember will be able to bolt onto your car. We derive the information to where the bolt location should be, not only from early owner manuals, but also from 3D scanning multiple Datsun 510s, and brought a mean conclusion to say this is where the holes should be, and slotting the crossmember holes to allow for any deviation. The next step is going to be our base settings. So the base settings on the front crossmember, if you're planning to go with a factory ride height, is going to be the lowest setting. The lowest setting is going to mimic the factory roll center. If you're planning to lowering your car about an inch and a half, you can go ahead and go one up from that, and every lowering increment as needed. Now, a really quick video on how we go ahead and can swap the roll center without having to unbolt anything is you put in the bolt that's supplied. You have these spaces that go in between the ears on the crossmember. and you go ahead and put the other spacer on the other side of the control arm. And you can see here, you can always pull the bolt out if you decide to flip the crossmember and put it in from the other way. If you ever need to adjust roll center on the fly, you can simply pull out the spacers, raise them up to whatever setting you want, and reinstall them. We do supply the nuts for this, but this is where your control arm goes, and that allows the clamping pressure to go onto the crossmember's front lower control arm pin. The next thing we're going to be going over is going to be the color choice. Now this is a gloss gray color choice. It's a beautiful color choice. It's a very neutral color choice. It does allow the suspension to stand out a little bit underneath the car without being overly visible, and overall it's a very nice color choice. We do have a ton of color options. If you're interested in the other color options, check out the color video over here, and for installation instructions on how to install these onto your 510, check out the installation video over here. Thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, give us a call or email us. Thanks again.